The first things you see of Iceland when you descend through that cloud layer are the sand, the mountains, and what feels like absolutely nothing in between. For an island with so much recorded history, it's remarkably unsettled. Most of the land is untouched because it cannot be tamed. You cannot live past these small huddled areas around the coastline, and everywhere you look you're reminded of the power of nature. Here you don't fight it, you accommodate it. It's difficult to believe that once nearly a fourth of this island was forest. The early settlers that cut it down for building materials, the livestock ate away at the underbrush, and you pair that with the harsh weather conditions, volcanic ash, erosion, flooding, and it becomes this barren, treeless landscape that pushes life into these small pockets where it can survive. Although several attempts have been made to replant over the past centuries, it's only recently that there have been significant results. In the 1950s, government efforts turned here to Akureyri, the capital of the north, and now 70 years later, the project continues as the most frequently visited woodlands in Iceland, which they named Jarnaskógur, core forest. The forest was planted in the outskirts of town. Today it's within reasonable walking distance, but even with that proximity, you can still see that clear divide between people and nature. And the first impression I had when I came here actually wasn't of the trees themselves, but of the view of development that forest provided. Here there is such a distinct separation between wilderness and civilization, and the trees, most of which have been intentionally planted, are somewhere along that very thin borderline. The most fascinating thing here is that there is no middle ground. You have a foreground and a background, but there's so much empty space in between that there's really nothing to grasp onto. And it's a very unsettling feeling. Iceland has some of the most fascinating landscapes in the world, and it's not just because of that abundance of mountains, glaciers, volcanoes, waterfalls, anything you can imagine. It's the proximity of these phenomenal, sublime things in nature. Because of that absence of middle ground, that land feature still has an impact on the viewer from 20 kilometers away. Now, of course, when you're used to perceiving distance like that, it's nothing, but from an outsider's perspective, it really is incredible. Trees are a necessity. They are the foundation for where we can build shelter and grow our crops to sustain ourselves. Without that, you have what we see today, this reliance on imports, people flocking to the capital for work instead of evenly settling around the island. And I saw that firsthand while living here to create this body of work. It all comes together and makes perfect sense of why things are the way they are. You can't look at a topic like afforestation without considering that bigger picture, because certainly there are so many contributing factors. It is so difficult to reverse something hundreds of years in the making, but it's possible. They say that 100 years ago, people couldn't imagine a tree growing here, and it's happening now. In Akureyri, there's an atmosphere of hope to finally restore what was lost and a prospect of new opportunity.